The morning sun peeked through thin curtains as Elena Grace stood barefoot in the kitchen, stirring oatmeal without much thought. The whole house felt quiet, too quiet. She had been up for over an hour, setting the table and cutting fruit just the way Marcus liked it, hoping maybe today he'd notice. But when Marcus finally walked down the stairs in his usual crisp shirt and that same muted cologne, he barely looked her way. "Morning," he muttered, grabbing a coffee before hiding behind his newspaper. Elena gave him a soft smile, swallowing the ache in her chest. "I thought we could eat together today," she said, placing the bowl in front of him. He didn't look up. "I've got a call in 20. Maybe tomorrow." And just like that, he was gone again, slipping further away. Later that morning, Elena sat alone at the edge of their bed, her fingers tracing the pattern on the sheets. Her heart felt heavier than usual, weighed down by questions she couldn't even put into words. It wasn't always like this. Marcus used to laugh with her, touch her lower back while she cooked. Now, it felt like she didn't exist anymore. She couldn't remember the last time he asked how her day went. The space between them had grown thick with unspoken things, and she wasn't sure if it was just distance or something, or someone else. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sabrina Vale. "Hey, dropping by later. Got some ideas for your anniversary plans." Elena gave a faint smile. Sabrina had always brought energy, even when Marcus didn't. Maybe her visit would help stir something back to life. What Elena didn't know was that letting Sabrina in would open the door to the darkest betrayal of her life. The sharp sound of heels on the tile echoed even before the doorbell rang. Elena opened the door to see Sabrina, glowing as always in a deep wine blouse and high-waisted pants. "Surprise!" Sabrina chimed, holding a small gift bag and an iced coffee. "For my favorite woman." Elena chuckled politely and stepped aside. "You didn't have to bring anything." Sabrina breezed in, her perfume sweet and bold. "You said you had a headache yesterday. Figured some caffeine and company would help," she said, leaning on the kitchen island. "Besides," she added, "I was bored. Marcus told me you've been super busy lately. Poor thing, you need a break." That last part sat in the air a little too long. Especially the way she said Marcus, soft, too familiar. Elena's smile slipped just slightly. She tucked a loose curl behind her ear and nodded. "Yeah, things have been busy." They moved to the living room. Elena curled up on the couch while Sabrina sat cross-legged on the rug, flipping through a folder filled with anniversary ideas for Elena and Marcus. "You know," Sabrina said, brushing her fingers across a glossy beachside hotel brochure, "Marcus has always loved ocean views. You should surprise him with a weekend trip." She looked up, her eyes narrowing playfully. "If you don't, someone else might." Elena let out a forced laugh, unsure if Sabrina was teasing or warning her. Sabrina had always been bold, often saying things that felt like jokes with a bite. "You think I don't know how to keep my man?" Elena asked, half smiling, half defensive. Sabrina raised her eyebrows, shrugged. "Just saying, Ellie. When things get too comfy, they start to feel like a routine. And men? They hate routine." The words hit hard. Elena's stomach knotted. She didn't know if Sabrina was helping, or hinting at something deeper. Either way, something inside her was bracing for a storm she didn't yet understand. The fluorescent lights at the office in Atlanta buzzed quietly as Elena worked on a quarterly report. Daniel Hart walked up to her desk with a warm smile, holding 2 coffees. "You looked like you needed one," he said, placing one next to her laptop. Elena smiled. "You're a lifesaver." Daniel leaned on the cubicle wall, studying her face. "You look tired, Ellie. Is everything okay at home?" The question caught her off guard. Her hands paused mid-air above the keyboard. "It's fine, just stressed," she said. Daniel nodded, though he didn't look convinced. "I saw Sabrina at the last office dinner again. Isn't she supposed to be working on a book launch or something?" "She's been everywhere lately," Elena said, her voice trailing. "She's just helping with the anniversary," she added quickly. But Daniel's voice dropped a little, more serious now. "She helps a lot." Elena tried to brush it off, but his words followed her long after he walked away. Daniel was always observant. He saw things other people missed. As Elena packed up her things for the day, she checked her phone. No calls. No texts. Marcus hadn't checked in, again. That was becoming the new normal. In the parking lot, Daniel caught up with her. "Elena," he said, his tone heavier now, "I don't want to overstep, but I've seen Sabrina around Marcus. A lot. And the way she looks at him, it's not how a friend looks at her friend's husband." Elena froze. "Daniel, please don't go there." But he raised his hands gently. "I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just saying, sometimes the person standing closest to you casts the darkest shadow." His words hit her harder than she let on. As she drove back to their Houston home that evening, her thoughts ran wild. Was there something she hadn't seen? Something that had been right in front of her face? That night, the dinner party at the Steele house was in full swing, soft jazz in the background, clinking glasses, and polite small talk. Elena had spent the whole day preparing, hosting Marcus's colleagues and their partners with her usual grace. Sabrina arrived fashionably late, turning heads in an emerald green dress that hugged every curve. Marcus's eyes lingered too long, Elena saw it. During dessert, as Elena returned from clearing plates, she spotted Sabrina leaning in, whispering something into Marcus's ear. He laughed, low-warm, and didn't even look up when Elena walked over. "What did I miss?" she asked casually. Marcus stood a little too fast. "Oh, nothing. Just work talk." Sabrina smiled like she knew a secret. "Yeah, Ratch, you wouldn't find it interesting." Elena nodded, pretending to let it slide. But something twisted in her stomach. Later that night, upstairs folding laundry, Elena accidentally knocked over Marcus's bedside drawer. As she reached down to gather scattered papers, her eyes locked on something, a sleek black watch she had never seen before. Definitely not one she had bought. The tag was still attached. It smelled faintly of perfume, not hers. She picked it up slowly, her heart pounding. The brand was luxury. Expensive. Her breath hitched as she opened the tiny drawer underneath. "Yours always." That's what the engraving said. The room spun. Her chest tightened. Marcus called from the bathroom. "Did you find my lotion?" Elena stared at the watch like it was a burning coal in her hand. "Yes," she croaked. "Found something." But she didn't tell him what. She quietly slipped the watch into her robe pocket, her hands shaking. Something was off. And for the first time, Elena realized, maybe her gut had been trying to warn her all along. The next morning felt different. The air was thick with humidity, sticking to her skin as she stood in the kitchen trying to focus on anything but the watch now hidden deep in her dresser drawer. A few days earlier, Sabrina had suggested a pepper stew recipe, saying it was Marcus's favorite. "It'll spice things up," she'd said with a wink. Elena had hesitated, but today, she finally decided to try it. As she started prepping ingredients and turned on the stove, she noticed something strange. A weird smell. She lifted the lid of the pot. Gas. The burner was barely lit. The flame was small and unsteady. Her eyes widened in panic. She quickly shut everything off and threw open the windows, coughing from the fumes. If she had struck that match Sabrina gave her earlier, the whole kitchen could have exploded. Her hands were shaking as she stood alone in the middle of her kitchen, heart racing. Later that night, she called Marcus. "Don't worry about dinner," she said. "There was a gas leak. I almost lit a flame." There was a pause on the other end. Then he asked, "Was anything damaged?" "Not, are you okay?" "Not, were you hurt?" Elena could hear female laughter in the background. "Was he at a bar? With someone?" "No, nothing. Just thought you'd want to know," she said quietly. "I'm glad the house is intact," he replied, before ending the call. Elena sat at the edge of the sofa in silence, stunned. She had nearly died, and all he cared about was the house. She looked at her phone, tempted to call Sabrina. But something had shifted. Maybe it was Marcus's cold voice. Or maybe it was the memory of the gas, the match, and the stew Sabrina pushed her to try. Either way, Elena realized something scary. She could have died, and she didn't even know why she'd been spared. That night, Elena waited for Marcus in the living room, wearing a soft silk robe, just hoping he'd look at her, really look at her. When he finally walked in, his tie loose and face tired, she stood up. "Marcus, we need to talk." He looked at her like she was bothering him. "About what?" She folded her arms, trying to meet his eyes. "About us. About how far we've drifted, and about Sabrina." At the mention of her name, something shifted in Marcus's face. It was fast. Most people wouldn't notice. But Elena did. "Sabrina's just a friend," he snapped. "You're being paranoid again." Her mouth fell open. "Again? When was the last time I even questioned you?" Marcus waved her off and moved past her. "Elena, I'm tired. I don't have time for your insecurities." She stood there, stunned. In her own home. "I almost died today, Marcus," she whispered. "There was a gas leak. I could've." He cut her off. "And you're fine, right? That's what matters." He didn't even glance back as he walked into the bedroom. Later that night, Elena lay in bed, facing away, pretending to sleep. She felt Marcus shift beside her and slip out of bed. The glow of his phone lit up his face as he sat by the window, texting, smiling. Her chest sank. The name on the screen was easy to catch, Sabrina. Elena turned to the wall, eyes burning, throat tight. Something in her cracked. But she didn't say a word. That night, she stopped trying. That night, she started watching. The next day, Elena had an event at a local women's center in Atlanta, a book exchange she'd helped organize. By afternoon, as people were heading out, Sabrina showed up with a big smile and car keys dangling in her hand. "Let me give you a ride," she offered warmly. Elena's stomach turned. "No thanks. I need to stop by a store anyway, I'll drive myself." Sabrina tilted her head, narrowing her eyes. "Come on, I don't mind." But Elena stood firm. "Really, Sabrina. I'll manage." Sabrina's smile faded for just a moment. Then she nodded. "All right. Your call." They split ways in the parking lot, but Elena couldn't help watching Sabrina walk off. Something about her pushiness felt too much. Too timed. On the way home, Elena's brakes began squealing. She thought maybe it was just the rain. But as she neared the next intersection, the brake pedal stopped working. Completely. Her car lunged forward, out of control. She barely dodged a delivery truck. Her heart pounded as she yanked the handbrake and swerved to the curb. She finally stopped, breathing hard, hands trembling. She sat there for a long time. Later, a mechanic came to help. Still shaken, Elena asked, "Do brakes just stop working like that?" He raised an eyebrow. "Usually only when someone messes with them." The words hung heavy in the air. Elena didn't respond. But inside, she was putting the pieces together. Sabrina insisting on driving her. The gas leak. The smile that never seemed real. She wasn't sure yet, but something wasn't right. The next morning felt too calm. Elena sat on the porch, tea in hand, the breeze brushing her skin like a quiet warning. Around noon, Sabrina called. Her voice was upbeat. "I've been thinking," she said casually. "Let's just move past everything. Lunch on me. There's a cute bistro downtown. Lots of people. You'll feel safe if that's what you're worried about." Elena hesitated. But then she agreed. Maybe she needed this, to figure things out or get some kind of peace. She dressed slowly, choosing a plain beige dress and flats. When she stepped outside, the sky looked darker, the clouds heavy. Still, she walked. The bistro was only 2 blocks away. As she neared the intersection, her phone buzzed again. A text from Sabrina. "Running late. Go ahead and grab a seat, I'll be right there." Elena smiled faintly and slipped the phone into her bag. She crossed the street. Then she heard it. An engine. Too loud. Too fast. From around the corner, a red car sped toward her. Way too fast for a quiet street. Elena turned, her body froze. It was coming straight at her. Too fast. Too direct. She couldn't move. The world slowed. A scream got caught in her throat. Just then, someone yanked her backward hard. The red car missed her by inches, its side mirror clipping her arm as she crashed to the sidewalk. Pain exploded through her ribs and side. Someone leaned over her. Warm breath against her cheek. "Stay still," the woman whispered. "Don't move." The red car never stopped. It vanished around the bend like it had never been there. Elena's vision blurred. She smelled flowers. Old lavender. The scarf around the woman's neck smelled like it had been touched by time. Her final clear memory was trembling hands holding hers, and a soft voice saying, "Not yet, my dear. You still have something to see." Elena woke up in a fog of hospital lights and beeping machines. Her ribs hurt with every breath. She turned her head and saw her. An older woman sat beside her, wrapped in a simple shawl. Her gray hair tucked beneath a dark scarf. Her face calm but unreadable. "You're awake," the woman said softly. "You were almost taken today." Elena tried to speak, but her throat was dry. The woman brought a glass to her lips. "Drink slowly. You were lucky." Elena coughed gently after the sip. "Who are you?" The woman smiled tiredly. "Call me Janelle Rivers. I was nearby. I saw what was coming. You don't yet know who's trying to erase you." Elena's eyes filled with pain and confusion. "That wasn't an accident?" Janelle didn't blink. "You already know it wasn't." Her voice was so certain, it gave Elena chills. "People like you," Janelle said, "you trust too easily. Your heart is open. But even good hearts need to learn to watch." A nurse entered the room and looked surprised to see someone already there. "She's been here since you were brought in," she told Elena. "Wouldn't leave your side." Elena turned back to Janelle with quiet gratitude. But her mind was spinning. The red car. The way it charged at her. Sabrina urging her to come out. She didn't want to believe what her instincts were shouting. But something had changed. Janelle stood slowly and placed her scarf in Elena's lap. "Rest now," she said. "You'll need your strength. The truth never comes gently." And just like that, she was gone, like she was never there. The next day, Elena lay in her hospital bed, staring at the scarf Janelle had left behind. It had strange threadwork, beautiful, but full of symbols she couldn't read. Her body ached, but it was the fear and confusion that left her frozen. The police came by. They called it a hit and run. "Cars lose control all the time," one officer said. "Probably distracted driving." But Elena knew better. Distracted drivers don't rev the engine. They don't aim. She stayed quiet and nodded politely, but inside her, a storm was building. Marcus hadn't shown up. Not once. The nurse, Maya Brooks, said someone named Sabrina had called earlier. Elena told her not to take any more calls from that number. Her trust was breaking apart. That evening, as the sun faded and the room turned dim, the door creaked open. Marcus finally walked in. His shirt wrinkled. His face unreadable. "Elena," he muttered. "They called. I came as soon as I could." She turned her face toward the window. "It's been 2 days." He sighed. "I've been busy." "What happened?" Her voice cracked. "A red car. It came for me. I could have died." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're making it sound like someone meant to hit you." Elena turned to face him, locking eyes for the first time in days. "Was it?" she asked softly. He scoffed and stood up. "I'm not doing this." But as he turned to leave, he stopped. "Sabrina's worried," he said. "She said she tried calling." Elena said nothing. She didn't have to. Marcus left the room. And for the first time, Elena realized just how alone she truly was. For the first time, Elena Grace understood just how completely alone she really was. The next morning, she sat propped up in her hospital bed. Her body still ached, but her thoughts were sharper now. She kept replaying the scene, the loud engine, the way the car came at her, how it never slowed down. She turned at the sound of footsteps. Marcus Steele stood at the door, holding a cheap bouquet of daisies. His face looked blank, emotionless. "You look better," he said, walking in slowly. Elena gave him a tight smile. "Better than when I was almost killed, I guess." Marcus sat beside her, not quite meeting her eyes. "They said it was a hit and run," he said casually. Too casually. "Terrible luck." Elena tilted her head. "Do you believe that?" Marcus blinked. "What are you saying?" Elena studied his face. "You didn't come when I was unconscious. Sabrina did." Marcus shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. "I had meetings. She was closer." Elena's eyes didn't move. "Closer," she repeated softly. Marcus stood up quickly, brushing off his shirt. Don't start again, Elena. You've always been too suspicious. Elena leaned forward slightly, ignoring the sharp pain in her ribs. No. I've just been too trusting. That's the difference. Marcus didn't answer. He walked to the door and mumbled, I'll check in later. He left without even looking back. Elena exhaled slowly. Her heart wasn't racing from heartbreak, it was clarity. That visit told her more than any words ever could. Janelle Rivers' warning echoed in her head, watch everyone, especially the one closest to you. That afternoon, the door opened quietly. Sabrina stepped in, wearing soft pastel colors and carrying a potted lavender plant. I heard you were awake, she said gently, smiling a little too brightly as she approached the bed. Elena said nothing, just watched her closely. Lavender for healing, Sabrina added, placing the plant on the table. You gave me one like this when I had my surgery, remember? Elena nodded slowly, her voice quiet. I remember everything lately. Sabrina took a breath and sat beside her. I was so scared, Ellie. When I heard what happened, I cried for hours. I thought I lost you. Elena raised an eyebrow. Why would you cry that much over me? Sabrina's eyes shimmered. You're my best friend. You've always been. Elena stayed quiet for a moment. Then she spoke softly. You know what I remember, Sabrina? Right before it happened, you told me to go ahead to the bistro. Said you were just a few minutes away. Sabrina's fingers clenched her skirt. That's true. I swear, I was coming from the other direction. Elena nodded, still watching her. And the driver never even braked. Not once. Sabrina blinked rapidly, then suddenly teared up, covering her mouth. Please don't say what I think you're saying. That hurts, Elena. After everything, how could you think I'd ever hurt you? Elena leaned back. Her chest hurt more from emotion than injury. I don't want to think it, Sabrina. But something about all this just doesn't feel right. Sabrina stood up quickly, wiping her tears. I'll come back when you're thinking more clearly, she said, her voice shaky, and then she left. Elena stared at the lavender plant on her bedside table. It sat there perfectly placed, like a scene meant to be watched. It felt too smooth, too acted. She had been in the front row long enough to know when someone was putting on a show. That night, after the hallway lights dimmed and the nurses stopped checking in, Elena sat upright in bed, unable to sleep. The scarf Janelle had left was folded beside her pillow. There was something comforting about it, like a quiet warning wrapped in fabric. A knock startled her. Come in, she called softly. No one entered. But when she turned to the window, she saw Janelle reflected in the glass. Elena sat up straighter as the older woman walked in soundlessly. You're healing fast, Janelle said with a nod, her voice low and knowing. Elena swallowed. I keep thinking. I was supposed to die. Wasn't I? Janelle moved closer, her eyes deep with wisdom. That day wasn't meant to be your end. But someone tried to change the story. Elena's voice trembled. Why me? Why would anyone want me gone? Janelle sat at the foot of the bed. Because you're in the way. In the way of power, secrets, and desire. Sometimes, love turns into obsession. And obsession blinds people. Elena's throat tightened. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Marcus. Sabrina. None of it adds up. But everything feels wrong. Janelle gently touched her hand. Listen to your spirit. It already knows what your mind doesn't want to accept. You don't need proof to feel danger. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Then what do I do? Janelle stood up, wrapping her shawl tighter. You watch. You stay still. And when the time comes, you'll know how to rise. She paused at the door and whispered, the one who smiles the most is sometimes the one holding the knife. Then she was gone, like mist. The nurse never even saw her leave. Elena was alone again, but this time, not helpless. It had been 4 days since she woke up in the hospital. Every day, her instincts grew louder. On the 5th morning, the young nurse Maya Brooks entered to check her vitals. She said casually, that red car was back again this morning. Same one from the report. Parked near the staff lot. Elena froze, her hand mid-sip. Are you sure it was the same one? She asked, trying to stay calm. Maya nodded while adjusting the blood pressure cuff. Yeah. Same scratch on the front. Same old license plate frame. Security said it left before they could get a clear shot again. Elena sank into her pillow, heart pounding. It wasn't a coincidence anymore. The red car was still watching her. That evening, she asked for help to walk down to the courtyard. She sat near the fountain, watching petals fall from the jacaranda tree. Her eyes scanned the parking lot. Then, as the wind picked up, she saw it. The red car. Half hidden behind a silver SUV, engine still running. She stared at it until the shape of the driver came into view, just a silhouette behind the dark glass. She couldn't see the face, but something about the stillness, the waiting, it chilled her to the bone. Seconds later, the car reversed and drove away. Did you see that? She asked a nurse walking by. See what? The nurse replied. Elena shook her head. Never mind. Her heart thumped as she whispered, You're still watching me, but now I'm watching you too. Something inside her shifted. She wasn't scared anymore. She was ready. 2 days later, Elena was allowed to have longer visits. That afternoon, Daniel Hart came in holding sunflowers and smiling warmly. These gowns aren't really your color, but you still look fierce, he joked. Elena managed a small smile. I'd trade fierce for answers. Daniel sat beside her. That's part of why I came. His tone grew more serious. I've been thinking about what I said, about Sabrina and Marcus. Elena's eyes narrowed. You saw something else? Daniel hesitated, then nodded. A few weeks ago, I ran into them at a cafe. She said they were planning something for you. But it didn't feel like that. They were sitting close. He touched her hand, like he forgot she wasn't you. Elena stared at the wall, hurt and anger swirling in her chest. I keep telling myself I'm imagining things, she whispered. That I'm turning Sabrina into the villain. Daniel leaned in. Sometimes, we romanticize betrayal. Because the truth is too ugly. But I saw them, Elena. That wasn't friendship. Elena closed her eyes. Her voice barely a breath. She cried by my bedside. Daniel didn't blink. Some people cry out of guilt, not love. Don't mix the two. His words struck deep. As he stood to leave, he placed a folded paper in her lap. I followed up on that favor you asked, he said. You'll want to read it. After he left, Elena unfolded the note. It was part of a car registration. The red car. Registered in her name. 2 months ago. She stared at the paper, horrified. Who would do this? She barely slept that night, the page clenched in her hand like it was screaming. That red car, the one that nearly took her life, was legally hers. She hadn't bought a car in over a year, so how could it be registered in her name? The next morning, Elena Grace called Daniel Hart in a quiet voice. I need one more favor, she said. Can you get security footage from the DMV, the day that red car was registered? Daniel didn't hesitate. Already on it. I had a feeling. Elena sat in silence for hours after the call, staring at her shaking hands. Someone had faked her signature. Used her name. Set everything in motion before the accident ever happened. She remembered months ago, Sabrina Vale had mentioned how helpful a second car would be. Just for errands, she'd said. I could help with the paperwork, too. Elena had laughed it off, or maybe she thought she did. That evening, Daniel returned with a USB drive. He'd slipped into the hospital after visiting hours. He plugged it into her laptop. Elena leaned in as the footage loaded. It was grainy. A woman at the registry. Wearing a baseball cap, sunglasses, and gloves. Subtle, but not enough. Pause it, Elena said sharply. Daniel froze the frame. Zoomed in. The resolution was bad, but Elena didn't need to see a full face. The posture. The way she moved. The slight turn of the head. It was Sabrina. She used my name, to register the car that almost killed me, Elena whispered. Daniel's voice dropped. That's not an accident. That's premeditated. Elena slumped back in bed, overwhelmed. Sabrina had planned this. And no one even noticed. The truth wasn't hiding anymore, it was staring her in the face, waiting for her to act. Back in her hospital room, Elena pulled out a fresh notebook, not for healing this time, but for facts. Every memory she wrote down came with a chill. The fire scare in the kitchen, the night Sabrina insisted she try gas, even though Elena usually used electric. The brake failure, right after Sabrina begged to give her a ride. The strange tea Sabrina made the day Elena felt dizzy at work. It all piled up, incident after incident. She titled the page, "Near Misses I Shouldn't Have Missed." Each scribbled line felt like a piece of her trust bleeding onto the paper. She had been lucky, but not just that. She had been watched. Protected. Janelle Rivers' face flashed in her mind, like a quiet guardian sent at the right time. Elena's pen hovered. How do you even write down betrayal when the person who betrayed you wears your favorite lipstick? She remembered a spa day months ago. Sabrina had accidentally booked them both for chemical facials. Elena backed out last minute. Her stomach was upset. But Sabrina pushed for her to do it. That same week, Elena's skin broke out badly, after using a new lotion Sabrina had gifted her. At the time, it felt like bad luck. Now, it felt like poison wrapped in a pretty bow. Her hand shook as she wrote. My body knew before my heart caught up. She flipped to a clean page and wrote one word in bold letters. Why? She underlined it twice. It wasn't about Marcus anymore. This betrayal went deeper than that. This wasn't just about jealousy. This was about obsession. About replacement. Her heart thudded as she whispered aloud. She doesn't just want what I have, she wants to be me. The next day, Elena received a package wrapped in brown paper. No return address. Her name was written in blocky letters, shaky handwriting. The nurse handed it over casually. Dropped off by an older woman. Didn't stay. Elena opened it carefully. Inside were two scarves. One pale blue. The other deep maroon. Both slightly stained. The maroon one had a faint patch of dried blood on one corner. The blue one had initials embroidered on it, JB. Elena's breath caught. Janelle had sent her a message. She unfolded the blue scarf. A small paper note was tucked inside. It read, Patterns repeat. One is meant to protect. The other meant to destroy. Keep what's true. Elena held the blue scarf close to her chest. She didn't fully understand it, but she felt the message deep in her bones. That night, she lay in bed with both scarves, one in each hand, like weighing truth and deception. One was the scarf Janelle had worn the night she saved her. The other, Elena had seen it before. Sabrina wore a scarf just like it during brunch weeks ago, tied loosely around her wrist. Elena had even complimented it. Now, that same scarf sat in her lap. Blood-stained. Daniel came by later that night. She showed him both scarves. She's not just trying to hurt you, he said, inspecting them. She's trying to replace you. Erase you. He paused. And if you hadn't survived that day? Elena nodded, her voice hoarse. She would have worn that scarf to my funeral. Maybe even sat next to Marcus, and cried. The thought hit her like a cold wave. Sabrina hadn't just plotted to kill her, she had dressed for it. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Elena drifted in and out of heavy dreams. In one, she was walking along a road, familiar, but the wind howled around her. Then, screeching tires behind her. She turned. The red car. Its headlights flared like evil eyes. This time, she didn't freeze. This time, she saw the driver. No shadows. No doubt. It was Sabrina. Her face calm. Her lips slightly parted, like she was humming a lullaby. Elena jolted awake, soaked in sweat. Her chest heaving. It hadn't felt like a dream. It felt like a memory returning. The next day, Elena asked to speak to a hospital psychologist, not about trauma, but about something specific. Is it possible, she asked, to forget something so painful that it only comes back in dreams? The woman nodded. Yes. When the mind isn't ready, it hides things. But when it is, it starts giving them back, piece by piece. Elena left that meeting quietly. Each step back to her room felt heavier than the last. Inside, she pulled out her journal and wrote a new entry. I think I saw her. I think I always knew. My mind just needed time to admit it. She looked out the window, scanning the world below. If Sabrina was bold enough to drive that car, who else knew? And how far had Marcus allowed it to go? The morning Elena was finally discharged. The sky was gray and the air held a cold bite. She stood outside the hospital holding her papers, unsure whether to step forward. Daniel pulled up minutes later. He took her bag, his face unreadable. "You sure about going back to that house?" he asked quietly. Elena nodded slowly. "That's where all the answers are." He didn't argue. Just opened the car door. The ride was silent. Just the soft hum of tires on pavement. Elena looked out the window. The city had kept moving. Cars. People. Life. But inside her, everything had changed. When they arrived, the gate was unlocked. Elena stepped inside cautiously, like the house might shift around her. The moment she walked into the living room, she froze. Sabrina was there. Fluffing pillows. Humming softly. Wearing Elena's robe. "You're home," she said with a bright smile. "I came to clean up. Get things ready. Marcus said you'd be discharged today." Elena's voice was cold. "Why are you here, Sabrina?" Sabrina didn't flinch. "Because I care. You've been through a lot. I thought you might need comfort." Elena looked around. Everything had been moved. Her books. Her flowers. Even the couch cushions. "Where's Marcus?" Sabrina stepped closer. "At the office. But he sends his love." Elena said nothing. She walked past her, up the stairs. Each step felt louder than the last. When she reached her room, her heart sank. Even her vanity had been rearranged. Sabrina hadn't come to help. She had come to move in. Elena didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, she watched. She smiled. She pretended to be tired. Overwhelmed. Grateful. "Thanks for helping," she said that night as Sabrina brought her a tray of soup. "You always show up when I need someone." "I need someone," Sabrina Vale smiled, gently placing her hand on Elena Grace's shoulder. "That's what friends are for." Elena nodded, her stomach twisting.